Howdy Cupcakes, it's Lisa here, and it is time for another hashtag 78 days, of course, of course, of course. Um, Today I am coming to you live. Well, I guess it's not live by the time you watch it, but I'm alive. At least I hope so, knock wood. From a hotel room in Seattle. The Hubster and I are here for the Seattle Antiquarian Book Fair. My husband's a book dealer, and you know, hard to find out of print stuff, which, as you can imagine, for someone like me, it's like being married to your drug pusher. It's really awesome. Anyway, so we're in Seattle, and it's actually a lovely sunny day. And I'm going to talk to you about the Nine of Cups, and then when I finish this video, I will film the Ten of Cups video, because since I was traveling, I didn't make my video yesterday, so it's another back-to-back 78 days extravaganza. So, the Nine of Cups, not my favorite card. Not my favorite card at all, even if it's the wish card. I don't experience it as that. I've never experienced it as that. When I see it in readings for others, sometimes the context tilts toward that. But it's hard for me to look at this guy and see him as anything other than smug and self-satisfied. You know, he's got what he needs. He's got it all, and it just, to me, is problematic. So I feel a little bit of a shadowy edge to this card in Pixie's artwork, and what I've enjoyed is decks that challenge that kind of shadowy element, because I appreciate the ways in which my reading goes against the grain. I mean, this is not supposed to be a card that has really necessarily any shadowy element. But it does participate in that thing about the nines that we see all the way going back to the Hermit, and then to the kind of analog of the Hermit in the second. And this is, I'm sort of following Hodorowski here, who thinks about the majors as falling into two lines of 10, with the World and the Fool sort of outside. I mean, there are lots of ways to break up the majors. So one way is to see it as 3 sequences as 7, with the Fool outside. Hodorowski's version, breaking it into 10, with the wheel as the sort of point where the movement flips over, is very helpful when, I think, from a numerological perspective, to think about what the nines mean, for instance, or what a given number means. You know, this sense of the light of the Hermit, and what it means for this kind of inner light to be the goal of the Hermit's seeking, or the beacon being a completely internal one that guides the Hermit on his way. You know, how that relates to what happens when in the sun, as that light becomes completely externalized. In many ways, that movement from the inside out, that kind of universalizing movement from the development of the individual to a kind of awakening for the world, that movement from individuation to kind of universalizing, that to me is in many ways the path that the majors are taking us on, and the tarot as a whole is taking us on. So right from the majors on, the nines seem to be a little bit about this relationship between what's inner and what's outer. And there's a way in which we can think about the perfection that 9 as a number represents. You know, it's 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3. This as a perfection, that's a perfection of an interior space, just like the Hermit is seeking and driven by this interior, this inside, internal light. So there's a way in which the figures in the nines are, in one way or another, reflecting the energies of their suit, are caught up in something internal. And even this figure of endurance and, you know, sort of survival of all obstacles of the Nine of Wands has a little bit of that feeling of, you know, the ways in which this energetic meeting of the world, this encounter of the world, that sort of striving and that willful spirit of connecting with the world that the wands so vibrantly and fierily, with much fire, represent. This Nine of Wands really shows us how that that energy plays out on what the self carries with him or her. And if I remember back to the card that I looked at in when I was talking about the Nine of Wands, I was looking at the card from the Tarot of Delphi and this figure of Persephone, and the ways in which that was showing us how Persephone's trials and tribulations, or something that she could endure, she could grow from, but it was very much about the impact of that energetic movement on the self. So there's something about the nines that's really about the self, and about a kind of, a completion of the self's journey, or a way in which the self, the individual, is being marked by the culmination of the suit. So it's like this one step before the culmination that the 10 represents, a step where things are still internal and haven't yet fully become external, if that makes any sense. And I think that's, why I get kind of irritated with the Nine of Cups. He's just so stuck on his own, like, yeah, I got it. So if this is a card that is about, the satisfaction of wishes, then I would say the gentle warning here is, is your wish coming true? Is that something that's really going to benefit you? Is it going to really fulfill you? And the answer may be, if the wish is too anchored in a narrow sense of self, maybe you're not going to be so happy. Like, that old adage, be careful what you wish for. At any rate, the Anna K Tarot, the deck I want to feature today, and I love this deck. I have it in both the self-published version and the mass market Llewellyn version, and I actually, in some ways, like the Llewellyn version more. It's got brighter colors. The cardstock. There are many times in which the Llewellyn cardstock, I think, its thinness and its pliability, is a really good thing. But so I love this deck. I love Anna K's artwork, like, the sort of storybook character of it, and the colors. I love the ways in which she has her people. It's all, I think all the figures are white, but many ages are represented. There's a lot of ways in which the character, look at the guy in the Four, and I'll come back to that in a second, because that Four of Cups is really interesting. The faces and the characters, she's spanning a whole range of ages and identities and life histories. But I almost never read with these cards, with this deck, and that's because I actually find, come back to that in a second, I actually find, did these get out of order? Yeah, they did. Sorry about that. So that was the 8. Come back to that in a sec. This is the 9. I actually find that this deck is it's really idiosyncratic. That's marvelous and wonderful, but in some ways it makes me not feel as confident about its readings. I don't get the clearest readings from this deck. I know that there are others who really feel this deck is spot on for them, and I'd be curious what y'all think, if you want to chime in the comments. But it's an interesting deck for me, and as a collector, it's a deck that I really appreciate. Okay, so one of the ways in which this deck is a little idiosyncratic, I think, is that, and interestingly so, is that many of the cards that are about individual choices and dilemmas in the very classic Waite-Smith imagery, like the 8, bring in a social context, right? So, this turning away, turning your back on the world. Here we have that turning. First of all, the figure is facing us rather than facing away in the traditional Waite-Smith imagery, And here, you know, we have a sense of the backstory, which has to do with being shut out of this warm space, or leaving it, feeling shut out, leaving it behind, leaving the light, and this light very much defined as a social world. You know, the world of the sun, actually, the sun card, where it's all about, like, the sun shines down on all of us. This social communal space is what this person is leaving behind, and that's a very different feel than the traditional Waite-Smith. Or this Four of Cups, so instead of the figure of, you know, the wastrel sitting under the tree, and the hand, the kind of fairy hand, the divine hand, the hand of gift, reaching in with a cup that's being rejected, here we have the sense of a man who's just not satisfied by all this that he has, and what he has, what's being offered to him is explicitly tied to a social context. And then we get to the Nine, and what I dislike in the Waite-Smith, you know, the sort of sense of individual, self-satisfied, it's just me and the world. Here we have the whole world, and as Anna Kay interprets this card, this is about celebration and conviviality. It's about community. It's about being with others. So that's a really different Nine of Cups. In fact, that's kind of a Nine of Cups that feels more like the Ten of Cups, which for Anna Kay brings the complete sort of satisfaction and culmination of the suit down into the individual. It's almost like she takes the Rider-Waite-Smith sun card, which has this feel of the sun and its universal rays, and it really becomes, in the Ten of Cups, just about the single person. So Anna Kay is doing interesting things with self and community. I'm not sure I completely have confidence in how she's interpreting these cards, but it's making it possible for me to see the ways in which the Nine of Cups doesn't have to feel so self-satisfied. It can just feel like this satisfaction on a very earthly, immediate physical plane, the satisfaction of everything that the heart desires. This, to me, does feel like the card of wishes coming true. Okay, I think I'll stop there with this very glowy, I love how pink-cheeked her face is, this very glowy, happy card. And, you know, as always, I'm grateful to you for joining me. And, you know, I think while wishes coming true, you know, be careful what you wish for. Wishes coming true is not always something that I would wish for you or for me. May whatever wishes are in your heart be clarified and be what will really nourish, and may they all indeed come to fruition. May you be very well. Take good care.